I normally don't watch this kind of movie, but you know what they say. It is always nice to try out new things. And, and I gotta say, as of today, you are all in for a special treat. One of Hollywood's most infamous villains is a crazy, sadistic cannibal named Hannibal Lecter. Dr. Hannibal Lecter. Or Hannibal the Cannibal, if you will. Wow, that actually rhymes. But yes, who is this Hannibal Lecter? Well, many people believe that he originated as a movie character from this one movie called Manhunter. Although actually the character did not get a whole lot of recognition in that movie. He mostly got his recognition in this one movie called Silence of the Lambs. Well, actually, Hannibal Lecter did not start out as a movie character. He was actually a fictional character from a series of books written by an author named Thomas Harris. It was his books that brought about the existence of the films Manhunter, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, Hannibal Rising, Red Dragon, and the television series known as, well, Hannibal. Yeah, they were so lazy they couldn't come up with a better name than Hannibal Lecter's first name. I don't get it. I mean, really, that's like if the next Jason Bourne movie were to be called just Jason. Lazy. Red Dragon was Thomas Harris's first book about Hannibal Lecter, and it was turned into a movie in 1986 called Manhunter. Now, it was loosely based on the book, Red Dragon. And then, later, in 2002, the movie got a remake. Yeah, it was given a remake, and it was retitled Red Dragon, you know, like the name of the book. And it was meant to be a prequel for Silence of the Lambs, which is actually, well, come to think of it, it makes sense to have it as a prequel, because actually, Silence of the Lambs is Harris's second novel. Now, yes, I have heard that there are differences between Thomas Harris's novels and the movies that are based on the novels. And I will admit I have not seen Manhunter. But we are here to talk about the movie Red Dragon. Let's talk about the story. The movie begins with psychiatrist and surgeon Dr. Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins, who decides to invite these musicians from a concert to dinner at his place.
I must say, Hannibal, speaking for the rest of the herd, I'm sorry, for the symphony board, that these little soirees of yours are always the highlight of our year.
You're too kind.
I do feel a bit guilty enjoying such a lovely evening when one of our musicians is still listed as a missing person.
Yes, poor fellow.
I really do not like that look on his face. You know he had something to do with the musician who disappeared.
Hannibal, confess. What is this divine-looking amuse-bouche?
If I tell you, I'm afraid you won't even try it.
It's probably the missing musician they're eating.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it reminds me of a very bad experience I had in the past. There was this one fellow who gave me this stew. I asked where the meat came from, and he said it was squirrel. Oh! It was so terrible. I committed squirrel cannibalism. Oh! I never want to look back at that moment. Why did Hannibal murder and cook the musician anyway? Did he make a mistake in one of the notes that he played? After dinner is over, Hannibal has another guest, FBI Special Agent Will Graham, played by Edward Norton, who is investigating a series of murders committed by a mysterious cannibal, whose identity they have not discovered. Graham is a very special individual. He has this unique gift where he can actually portray all these murderous and gruesome events and see them like as if they happened with his own eyes. And some would argue that he has a very sick mind. But, not Hannibal. He doesn't seem to think so. Probably because he has a very sick mind.
I needed to see you first, but I'm right. I know I'm right. I'm starting to be able to think like this one.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You know, I'd always suspected as much. You are an eye attacker.
I'm not psychic, Doctor.
No. This is different. More akin to artistic imagination. You're able to assume the emotional point of view of other people, even those that might scare or sicken you. It's a troubling gift, I should think. How I'd love to get you on my couch.
Okay, very awkward moment. I'm in need of some personal space. Graham was visiting Hannibal a few times to uncover the killer's identity. Well, while searching through Hannibal's house, he found out that Hannibal is the killer.
Don't move. You're in shock now. I don't want you to feel any pain. In a moment, you'll begin to be lightheaded, then drowsy.
Lightheaded and drowsy. Would probably be impossible for me because of the caffeine and all the coffee that I drink.
Don't resist. It's so gentle, like slipping into a warm bath.
You can tell that he's done this a lot.
Remarkable boy. I do admire your courage. I think I'll eat your heart.
I'll eat your heart.
Now, you may think that he's dead. Yeah, you may think that Hannibal is dead, but actually, he's not. Seriously, I don't understand how anyone can survive such extensive injuries. Yeah, where those arrows went, I'm pretty sure that's where one of the kidneys is located. He'd be dead instantly. And all those bullet wounds, he'd be bleeding to death. Even if he did survive. Hannibal is arrested and sent to a psycho ward, and Graham resigns from the FBI. Well, after some time has passed, Graham is visited by his old boss, Jack Crawford, played by Harvey Keitel, who is the special agent in charge of the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit. He wants Graham to take part in a case regarding a mysterious serial killer nicknamed the Tooth Fairy. It's the press who nicknamed him. He obviously did not make that name. No, he didn't. Whoever the killer is, he did not come up with the name. In fact, he's actually insulted by that name. Graham agrees, and afterwards, he is sent to investigate the scene of the crime. A home once owned by a family, a husband, a wife, and I think it's either 2 or 3 kids. They were a very happy family who tragically got murdered by this so-called Tooth Fairy, who mutilated the family members and put mirror fragments into their eyes. It's really disturbing. And, well, they only got a partial print on one of the mirror fragments, but, yeah, with that being a partial print, they were unable to uncover who the killer is. And so, all the leads are going cold. They are nowhere near finding the killer's identity. And so, they are forced to do one thing. Graham visits Hannibal in his cell. And, well, I gotta say, judging by that look on his face, he was not looking forward to it. In fact, I don't think Hannibal was looking forward to it either. On one of the trees just outside the crime scene, Graham finds something that might help identify the killer. There is a mark that is engraved onto the tree. It is the symbol of the Great Red Dragon. And then we cut to a scene in someone's home, specifically the Tooth Fairy's home. And he's working out, getting his big muscle mass.
Francis, I've never seen a child as dirty and disgusting as you. Look at you, you're soaking wet.
And he is hearing Pamela Voorhees' voice inside his head. Actually, I'm kidding. It's the voice of his grandmother, who badly abused him when he was a child. We do get to see who the Tooth Fairy is. A man named Francis Dollarhide, played by Ralph Fiennes. He works for this video company, while secretly he's the serial killer. And he also meets this blind lady who works there. Her name is Reba, played by Emily Watson. And she obviously has no idea whom she's befriending. Meanwhile, back in his cell, Hannibal decides to raise the stakes by endangering Graham's wife and son. What he does is, he makes a phone call pretending to be someone else, and he gets Graham's home address. And he gives it up for the Tooth Fairy to hear. And then the Tooth Fairy decides to send a letter to to Hannibal, talking about how big of a fan he is of Dr. Lecter's work, and also he wishes to discuss about his becoming. Yeah, apparently Francis thinks that he is changing into a magnificent beast, whom he describes as the dragon. Well, not only that, but Francis has a dual personality. There's this one personality where he is a very shy individual. He's shy, especially towards Reba. And he also develops feelings, romantic feelings for her. Whereas this other personality is the murderous dragon. Yeah. The murderous personality, that's where the serial killer within him lies. Graham and Crawford decide that they have an idea. And so they approach this reporter named Freddie Lowndes, played by the late Philip Seymour Hoffman. And, Lowndes and Graham, they really hate each other. Because, it was Lowndes who wrote the report about Lecter's arrest. And he gave Graham a very bad name on the front page. So, in fact, that could very well be one of the reasons why Graham resigned from the FBI. Hard to say. But Graham and Crawford decide to give Lowndes a story to write about the Tooth Fairy. And they'll use that story to try learning the Tooth Fairy out in the open. Well, Francis is very insulted by the story that Lowndes wrote and decides to kidnap Lowndes and superglues him onto a wheelchair. Superglue, huh? Ow!
I don't need to see you, no. Oh, but you must, Mr. Lowndes. You're a reporter. You're here to report.
Very astute.
Right? I mean, isn't that what a reporter does? Francis then forces Lowndes into watching his enormous body tattoo from behind. There's no way he could have done all that on his own. He probably forced one of his victims into tattooing his entire backside, and then he probably killed him after his services were no longer needed.
Do you see now?
It's the legendary Black Beast of...
I am the dragon, and you call me insane. You are privy to a great becoming, and you recognize nothing. You are an ant in the afterbirth. It is in your nature to do one thing correctly. Before me, you rightly tremble.
Does he write all that on his business card?
You are an ant in the afterbirth.
Ant? Boot.
But fear is not what you owe me, Mr. Lowndes. You owe me all.
What? Was Nicolas Cage one of the actors auditioning for the role of Francis Dollarhide?
You owe me all.
Well, Francis decides to kill Lowndes. Yeah, he literally gives him the kiss of death, and then he lights him on fire and rolls the wheelchair away and I'm so sorry. Was I supposed to take that? Was I supposed to take that seriously? I mean, really? Okay, listen. I know it's supposed to be a very violent scene, but seriously. Meanwhile, Dr. Lecter's probably asking, hey, what are we having for dinner? And they're probably saying, well, we're not serving Kentucky Fried Lowndes for dinner. Okay, I'll be good now. Oh, really. So, anyway, going back to Francis's so-called normal life, well, we find that Reba falls in love with him. And they say love is blind. Well, yeah, she actually sleeps with him. And in the morning, she's not in bed with him. And so Francis, he goes wandering around the house, naked. And as he's going up the stairs, ew, they showed his dinghy. Francis goes to this museum where they have the painting of the Red Dragon. And yes, it is said to be the original painting. Well, talk about a loss of art as he decides to kill two of the people managing the museum, and he eats the painting. Hungry, aren't we? Meanwhile, Graham and Crawford find out where the Tooth Fairy is getting all these videos, all these recordings of the families he murdered, and turns out he's getting them from the video company he works for. Yes, in fact, that's how they discover the identity of Francis Dollarhide. No. You don't go through all that trouble to look for Francis.
Where's Francis?
See? Deadpool would know what to do. Well, before the FBI show up at Francis's place, Francis abducts Reba. And, he planned on killing himself and taking her with him. But he couldn't do it. No, he just couldn't do it. In fact, he wanted to spare her from all the horrors of his other personality, the dragon. But he couldn't do it. And so what he does is, he lights the house on fire and then he shoots himself in the face. Well, actually, no, he does not kill himself. I mean, come on. We've seen this sort of scenario in many other movies. The bad guy fakes his death. But since Reba is blind, she doesn't really know what happened, okay? As far as she's concerned, Francis killed himself. With everyone thinking that Francis is dead, the case is closed. But then Francis invades Graham's home and tries to murder his son.
Your son is about to change. Then your wife. You can watch. Then I'll take care of you.
Look at you. I've never seen a child as disgusting as you.
What are you doing?
You pissed your pants? How dare you?
He's scared! What would you do if you were him?
Say it or I will cut it off. I'm a dirty little beast. Freak. Hair lip. And no one will ever love me. Run! Run!
Oh, I see. That was supposed to trigger Francis into a killing spree, because he was actually imitating Francis's abusive grandmother. I'm sorry, but you still hurt your son's feelings. After this situation's over, you're going to have to do a lot of explaining to do. And not just to him, but to your wife as well. Graham tries to kill Francis, by shooting him to death, but he gets fatally wounded in the process, thus leaving his wife to kill Francis. And I gotta say, her reaction was very understandable. I mean, after she killed Francis, this is a woman who's never killed anyone before. If you were someone who's never killed anyone before, how do you think you'd feel? And, Graham was shot so many times. And so was Francis before he got shot 3 times in the face. They were still alive from all that? Seriously, is everyone in this movie bulletproof or something? After all that trouble, Hannibal Lecter writes Graham a farewell letter, with the first sentence being, I hope you don't look too ugly. Okay, must have been a mistake in the script. Because, from what I've heard in the book, Graham gets badly disfigured by Francis. Yeah, his face gets all badly scarred up and everything. But of course they don't show that in the movie. Probably because it's Edward Norton, he likes to be his handsome self, especially at the end of the film. Well, after that, the head psychologist at the psycho ward tells Hannibal that he has a guest, a young woman, a rookie from the FBI. And we all know who that is. Yep, Clarence Starling in The Silence of the Lambs. So, what do I think of this movie? Well, I mostly watched it because of Anthony Hopkins. His performance never fails as an actor. Really. I think he did a really good job on how he played Hannibal Lecter. And I know that there was another actor who played Hannibal Lecter before he did. In the movie Manhunter, Lecter was played by Brian Cox. Well, honestly, I think Hopkins did a better job. I mean, I don't mean to discredit Brian Cox. I mean, he's also a good actor. But Hopkins, he did pretty good. I mean, it's like he was born for the role, you know? In fact, in a couple of movies before that, he got an Oscar award for Silence of the Lambs. So, he's definitely the kind of person for the role, yeah. Now, I know that in the television series he was portrayed by Mads Mikkelsen, who's a good actor as well. But, really, every time I think about Hannibal Lecter, I think about Anthony Hopkins. I mean, because that is the real Hannibal Lecter right there. If you're into movies about killer psychopaths, then this is definitely the right film for you. Please, I insist that you watch this movie. Before you start watching the television series, if you haven't seen it, that is. And before you've seen this origin film called Hannibal Rising. I haven't seen that, but I heard that it was really gruesome. Perhaps more so than this movie. But anyway, that is Red Dragon. Thank you all for watching, and as always, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and there may be a few videos about liver being served with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. See ya!